Good evening. Welcome to the Kent City Council meeting for October 4th, 2022. If you could all rise and join me in the flag salute, please.
Slowly.
Slowly.
Very slowly.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Kim, could you please call the roll?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mayor Ralph.
Here.
Council President Boyce.
Here.
Councilmember Fincher.
Here.
Councilmember Kaur. Councilmember Larmer.
Here.
Councilmember Michaud.
Here.
Councilmember Thomas.
Here.
Councilmember Troutner.
Here.
Thank you.
All right. The next item is the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda? Okay, seeing none, a motion would be in order.
So move. Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Agenda stands as published. Moving into item number 4, public communications. We have 2 items this evening. The first one is a recognition of our October 2022 Employee of the Month. So here at the City of Kent, our employees get together each month and have the opportunity to nominate a coworker who exemplifies our mission, vision, values, and goals in their day-to-day discharge of their duties or on a special project. Generally, I find that it is employees that do both things very, very well, and that's what makes them stand out to their peers. So I am very pleased tonight to announce that Luke Brandenberry is our October Employee of the Month. Luke started working for the police department on April 1st, 2011 as a probationary lateral police officer. He works to protect life and property, enforce laws and ordinances, and prevent and investigate crimes. Luke was nominated because of his outstanding and exemplary support to the Kent community through his efforts to connect with local youth. Officer Brandenberry developed the idea to have a Division I student athlete give back to the community by coaching a free to youth football clinic to encourage service by that student athlete. He arranged to have an event take place in Kent to make it more accessible to kids here in our community. Officer Brandenberry raised funds for the event in order to provide youth to attend a free T-shirt, and I think there was a barbecue, if I remember correctly. Officer Brandenberry created, distributed flyers, coordinated with the City Parks Department to secure a venue. In total, 80 kids ranging from 10 to 17 years old attended. Not all kids were established football players. Some of them simply had an interest in the sport. Other campgoers were troubled youth that Officer Brandenberry had encountered on his calls. Officer Brandenberry has also organized support from other local football coaches and KPD staff. So I had a chance to attend that event. It was amazing. It was pouring down rain, but everybody had a really good time. There was a barbecue, watching the kids out there on the field, just getting to be together and learn those skills, and watching all of the mentors and coaches lead by example was a pretty cool thing. Luke continuously embraces our values, and we celebrate him as October's Employee of the Month. Chief, you want to come up and say a few words?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. And Luke, I don't know if you want to come up. He's not big on a lot of attention. So
Get up here.
But I do want to add on, if I could. Luke did this in a very humble way, and it's really indicative of who he is, both as a police officer but as a person. I started hearing rumblings about this event going on, and of course I'm like immediately, wow, that would be great. We should tell our story and show how awesome. And in talking with Luke, he didn't want the attention. He wanted to go, and really he wanted to go and make sure we weren't leading us coming off as we're police officers. He just wanted to go and mentor to the youth, and that's the kind of guy he is. Very humble, didn't want a lot of attention, wanted to be successful and make an impact without the fanfare, but lo and behold, we nominated him for Employee of the Month, and so we're here now anyway. But I do want to recognize it because he inspired other officers to get involved as well as other organizations. And Luke is just one example of many people we have who've made a move from other departments. As you said, Luke came here from Maryland as a lateral officer, and he wanted to work for this city. And on his professional life, I could go on and on. He is very accomplished. He has handled and been involved in some of highest levels of investigations on some serious matters. They're so serious I can't talk about them publicly, and I'm serious about that. So just an incredible guy, and I just want to congratulate him as well. So congratulations, Luke.
I'm going to ask, and you can say no. Did you want to come up and say anything?
No, thank you.
All right. Always pose it as a question. So thank you for everything you do for our community every day, Luke. We are really, really grateful that you chose Kent.
Yep.
All right. We are going to move on. The next item on our agenda is a proclamation for October being Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And joining us to accept the proclamation is the Executive Director of Dawn, our neighbors just to the east here in downtown Kent. I'm going to go ahead and read the proclamation, and Angela, if then you want to come up and say a few words, that would be great. All right. Whereas National Domestic Violence Awareness Month was established in October of 1987 to acknowledge and provide a voice for domestic violence victims and survivors, to advocate for legislation and protections for victims, to educate leaders, and to encourage public awareness and action against abuse. And whereas domestic violence is prevalent in every community, and on average nearly 20 people per minute are physically abused by an intimate partner in the United States. And whereas domestic violence is a pattern of physical, emotional, verbal, and/or sexual abuse that affects millions regardless of race, gender, religion, occupation, education level, socioeconomic status, or sexual orientation. And whereas the City of Kent remains committed to a professional response to incidents of domestic violence and strives to change belief systems and practices that support violence and abuse that disproportionately affect women and other marginalized people. And whereas becoming a place where all people embrace the spirit of nonviolence and where people develop healthy relationships based on mutual respect requires the participation and commitment of an entire community. Now, therefore, I, Dana Ralph, Mayor of the City of Kent, do hereby proclaim October 2022 to be Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Kent, Washington, and encourage all residents to speak out against domestic violence, support the efforts of victim advocates and service organizations, honor the courage and resilience of survivors, and commit ourselves to standing with them for the safety, dignity, and justice for all. Thank you for being here. It's good to see you.
Good evening, Council. Hello, my name is Angela Mercado. I'm the Executive Director of the Domestic Abuse Women's Network. I am so humbled to have the opportunity to work with this organization every day. Thank you so much again, Mayor Ralph and Council, for acknowledging this important month of Domestic Violence Awareness Month. As she mentioned, we are neighbors here in Kent, and our organization has been going strong for 42 years. Our organization functions within South King County, throughout Greater King County, and we work within legal advocacy, mobile advocacy, TANF advocacy, mental health services, children wraparound care services, and also operate a confidential emergency shelter for individuals fleeing high lethality domestic violence. It is my honor to serve alongside my fantastic team every day. Some quick statistics in 2021 and moving into 2022. Dawn has provided close to 20,000 hours of service units, meaning we are either working within individuals on our 24-hour crisis line. We're working within the community to help individuals get their needs met, help them feel safe and supported on their journey. We have offered over 6,000 safe bed nights in 2021. And so far, we have had over 3,800 phone calls on our advocacy and crisis line, which operates 24/7, 365. Thank you again so much, and I hope you all have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Dawn does incredible work here in our community and across the region, and you heard Angela talk about the amount of service they provide and the variety of services. And like I said, I could not be more grateful that we are neighbors, that for the work that you do, and that journey from helping people to transition from victim to survivor. It is so important, and the resources you provide. So thank you very, very much. Okay, the next item on our agenda is community events. Council President Boyce, do you have any community event?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to share with you a couple of things going on at the Cecil Showwear Center. So on Saturday, October the 8th, we have Bruna Boy. I heard it's a pretty good concert. I never seen it, but it's probably pretty good. So Lamb of God Omen starts on Monday, October 10th. Seattle Thunderbird play October 11th and the 14th. We got Gloria Trevet Divana World Tour, Saturday, October 15th. I'm sure I chopped that up, but hey, just go there. Disney on Ice is on October 26th, and we have a Los Tigres reunion tour on Friday, November 4th. We have the 100.7 The Wolf Hometown Holiday on December 9th. Tacoma Star have their home opener on December 10th, and then we have Gary Allen Ruthless Tour on Friday, January 13th, first of the year. There's lots of other shows going on, so please go to www.accessorshowrentalcenter.com. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Council President. Councilmember Michaud.
Yes, Madam Mayor. I have two Kent Parks conservation events, volunteer events, and this is where volunteers will remove invasive plant species and then plant native trees and shrubs in these areas. The first one is October 15th from 10 to 3 at Riverview Park, and that's Orca Recovery Day. And the second is called Relief, and that is on Saturday, October 29th from 9 to noon at Mill Creek Canyon and Earthworks Park.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Fincher.
Thank you. I just want to remind everyone that the Spotlight Series kicks off this month, and so be sure to check out the website. If you like music, there are lots of different types of musical concerts coming, so be sure to check that out. Good prices, good entertainment. Thank you.
All right. Moving on, the next item under public communications is our Economic and Community Development Report, and joining us tonight is our Chief Economic Development Officer, Bill Ellis.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council members. I'm here to give the quarterly update on some information that impacts the city of Kent. I'm going to look at a little bit some macro data today, big picture. So one, as I've been coming back once a quarter, I've been talking about tracking the recovery, and the chart on your left here continues to show consumer spending. How is it doing in the Seattle Metro, of which we are a part? You can see we're nearly caught up now. Total spending is in fact up 1.5% from where we started way back when with the pandemic. But restaurants and hotels are still beneath where they were back before the pandemic started, all this time later. And a lot of the entertainment spending, Council President Bill Boyce was giving some comments earlier about the Accessory Showwear Center. Please support the Accessory Showwear Center. But entertainment is still coming back as a sector. And that has a lot to do with the jobs picture that we've been seeing and the inflation that we've been experiencing. A lot of companies have dealt with this, the disruptions in labor and disruptions in supply chain over the last few years by stockpiling even more inventory. So consumer goods, stockpiling them in warehouses. You might see where I'm going with this, given that we're in the Kent Valley. Spending is shifting to experiences. So people are prioritizing travel, hospitality. So that's been the growth area. That's a more labor-intensive area. You need to hire more people to work at hotels, to work at restaurants. It's more labor-intensive than ordering a consumer good online from a warehouse and have it delivered to your house. More jobs involved with that. So what we've been seeing sort of nationally, internationally, is central banks around the world are trying to tamp down demand to kind of cool down inflation by raising interest rates. Most recently, for every person in the labor market, there were 2 open vacancies. We had a big jobs report just today. In August, it fell to 1.67 per job. So the number of jobs available per person in the workforce is decreasing, and doing so deliberately by the policy of many of the world's largest banks, federal banks, Federal Reserve, Central Bank of the European Union. And I'm going to bring this back to warehouses in a moment and make this local. But Something that we've been noticing is that this is a national news story. U.S. shippers are seeing a 20% drop in ocean freight orders. There's declines in machinery, household products. So spending is continuing to push up hiring right now, but the spending is on luxury, travel experiences, hospitality, going out to restaurant, entertainment. The spending is starting to see signs early on that the product, the good, is falling. And so that's partly because companies have done so much stockpiling of inventory. There's been a lot of news about that. So that's been a lot of the demand on warehouses for a long time. So now you're starting to see that decline. The strategy for dealing with the supply chain bottlenecks and the sort of green, red, yellow, that's the different ports around the country. A lot of freight traffic had shifted from the West Coast to the East Coast, and then they were taking on railroads goods back to the West Coast after reaching ports on the East Coast. Seattle had some spillover. Seattle's having some time and port issues right now. The main story here is that we're starting to see signs of a deliberate induced recession take hold. It's not that deliberately the central banks are trying to create a recession, but they'd rather have a recession than have inflation continue to run at 9% year over year. This is a recent news story just from a couple of days ago. Supposedly, port markets like Seattle are continuing to see high demand for their industrial space. A lot of demand for warehouses, which is, of course, as we know, about a third of our land area. We have over 45 million square feet of warehouses in the Kent portion of the Kent Valley, which is 125 million square feet, one of the largest warehouse hubs in the country, second largest on the West Coast outside of Long Beach, Orange County, Inland Empire. So is this demand going to continue? As of right now, it continues to stay aloft. It's surprisingly, we've had a lot of new construction. I've talked here about it before. We've permitted millions of square feet. In the third quarter of last year, 90% of all the industrial construction in Puget Sound was in the city of Kent. The rent rates are still going up, but so is the cost to build new warehouses. And e-commerce's share of retail sales is continuing to grow. So that's kind of a positive pressure. So one of the long-term stories that I've been since I've worked here the last 8 years has been as more and more consumers shift from going from big box and your local retail store and purchasing online, that percentage share, as that increases, that always has increased demand for warehouse supply. But now with the mild recession and we're looking at the order shipments starting to decline overseas for bringing in product, will we start to see increasing vacancy in warehousing? You won't see it this quarter, you won't see it the next quarter. You'll probably see it second quarter of next year if it shows up. Because a large percentage of the warehouse that you see is actually processing Christmas return gifts. That's actually a large factor in demand. People don't think about that, but so think about when you're going to return your gift that you didn't like from the holiday season. And that's about when we'll start to notice whether or not, I think, warehouses will decline, to make something kind of glib about it. But I raise this now because we've done a lot of things in the last few years. We talked about Rally the Valley. We've talked about some of the design codes. We're seeing strong leasing for now. We're seeing a lot of manufacturing companies move into the new leases and the new construction, not e-commerce companies. I'll come back to council in January of next year and talk about some of those companies that have signed leases in that space. I think a large percentage of them will not have been e-commerce. That's part of our local story. And the other news story I just wanted to point to is came out today is that Seattle's opening up their industrial land use codes once again. It's like the fourth time in the last 10 years. And I couldn't help but notice a lot of the ideas that are now percolating around the hallways in the city of Seattle about how to deal with their industrial land were things that we talked about here in council. One of which was housing. I think we had some individuals from the Port of Seattle come here and talk about, we shouldn't let housing into our industrial areas. It'll be interesting how they react now that it's being proposed again in limited areas of Interbay and other areas. We talked a lot about curtailing the demand for mini storage or personal storage warehouses in our industrial areas. It looks like they're looking at that now in Ballard and Interbay. We talked about maker spaces and smaller scale production spaces in our design codes. That's a new design. That's a new transition zone that's under discussion in the city of Seattle. So I think a lot of the things that was done here with this council in the last few years are starting to show up in how other people are looking at their industrial lands in the region. And I just wanted to point that out. And I'll have more data first quarter of next year I also think it would be interesting for us to really watch, because it's been a very consistent story for about 8-9 years of unparalleled demand for industrial warehouse space, just straight up rent rates climbing the wall, great, huge charts. And then you start seeing the shipping orders go down, and you look at all the financial policy that's trying to tamp down demand for the e-commerce piece. Is that long-term story that I've been telling here about to change? And I think that's something I just wanted to share tonight at the update, and pause for questions.
Thank you, Bill. Councilmember Fincher.
Did you say 90% of new construction is here?
In the third quarter of last year, so 2021. Yeah, it was a large volume going through our permit office at one point. I will come back with more statistics the next year of all the construction that has taken place since Raleigh the Valley, but it'll be clearly over 1 to 2 million square feet of warehouse space was built since Raleigh the Valley in Kent.
Other questions for Bill? Okay, we're going to be following the predictions, and I
don't usually like to do predictions, but
I am grateful though for you pointing out where Seattle's at. I mean, Council, we all collectively took a lot of grief around things like, do we open up pockets of the industrial area for housing, and what kind of limitations are we putting it on? Trendsetters, and clearly Seattle's now talking about it. So,
yes, that's right. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Okay, we will move on. Item number 5 on the agenda is reports from everyone up here on the dais. Everyone on this council serves on committees or boards outside of these council meetings, or city committees, council committees. The reason behind that is to make sure that Kent's voice is heard at the regional level. If we are not a part of the conversation, we are not a part of the decisions being made and things that are impacting our community. So I say it at every council meeting. I'm very, very grateful for council's involvement on those regional issues. I have just a couple of quick items this evening. First one is a little bit of a housekeeping item. I want to make sure that council is aware, and the public, that on the 22nd of September, I did sign a proclamation rescinding the COVID state of emergency. Like I said, housekeeping, we did not use it here in the city of Kent. If you think all the way back to March 6th of 2020, when that happened. Very different time. I think the only action we took under it was a temporary pause on the bag ban that had just recently gone into effect. And you think about where everyone was at the very beginning stages of the pandemic and the concern over people bringing their own grocery bags into the grocery stores. But nothing that was not taken through council, no action used, mostly put in place as a precaution. So that has been removed. And again, just a housekeeping item. A couple of other things. I sit on the executive board at PSRC. We met last week, presentation on the regional transportation plan, just determining priorities and work plan. So safety and climate continue to be the largest items driving that work plan, and what most of the work is surrounding there at the regional level. Had an opportunity to meet with, actually twice last week, the new CEO of Sound Transit, Julie Tim. She comes to us from the East Coast. I want to say maybe North Carolina.
Hey, Carolina. I knew it.
She, when we met last week, had been on the job for all of 3 days, but I will tell you, already up to speed on the issues that we're facing here in the region when it comes to Sound Transit, funding, projects, time, schedule, delay, all of those things. And she managed to come and be the speaker at a meeting that Councilmember Von Reichbauer held in Seattle, or excuse me, in Federal Way at 7 a.m., and she's coming all the way from Seattle. So appreciate the commitment to South King County, and at that meeting she did talk a lot about her commitment to South King County and making sure that we were not continue to be an afterthought in all of our transit development. So I'm really looking forward to continuing to develop that partnership. Finally, I want to say thank you to a couple of neighborhoods. We started a new series for our neighborhoods called Drinks in the Driveway. It is soda pop. It is a variety of of, Coke, Diet Coke, that kind of thing. Want to make that really clear from the beginning. But we had a meeting with the Lakes neighborhood last week, and then one with Olympic Skyline condos up here on the East Hill last night. Both of those neighborhoods had great turnouts. I've had Chad Barron, our Public Works Director, and Assistant Chief Kasner. Last night, Chief Padilla joined me, and it's just an opportunity to get together with neighbors and address issues and concerns and hear from them. So I want to say thank you to all the neighborhoods that have signed up for that. I think we've got 5 or 6 left, hopefully while the weather holds out, and then we'll resume them again next spring. With that, I am going to look over to my right to our Chief Administrative Officer, Pat Fitzpatrick.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just quick reminder, we have no executive session. We have our budget retreat tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. And my update is in the council packet. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Pat. On to Councilmember reports. Council President Boyce.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to say that for Sound City Association, we have been without a executive director for quite some time. We did do an interview a couple weeks ago. Madam Mayor was part of that, and we are going to be making an announcement on Friday. We got a meeting at 9 o'clock with the board member, and I'm looking forward to making that announcement. That's going to be pretty exciting. So stay tuned for Friday, 9 o'clock. We should have something hopefully finalized. Tonight we had during our public safety meeting, we talked about revising the camping ordinance. I would say that our CAO did a phenomenal job of really just explaining and walking through it. I would ask that, it's possible maybe we can take this presentation and maybe put it on the website, give people opportunity to look at it, because I think it have a lot of good information in it for us, what this really is and what we're really trying to do. I mean, at the end of the day, it's really about public safety, right? We want to make sure that, that our citizens are safe, the people who's camping is safe, the business community is safe. So, and also we talked about just being compassionate, how we go about doing this here and making sure that we are very compassionate about it and making sure that we are helping the people out there that are trying to get help with addiction, and mental help and so on. And then the question that I asked, but what if there's no shelter? Because they say there's not enough shelter out there. So if there's no shelter, then they're going to just suspend it. And nothing's going to happen until they have an opportunity to be able to find shelter. So great presentation. We got going to bring this back on October 18th, and it'll be on other business. In the council meeting agenda, and then we'll have a little more discussion, and then we'll move forward with that. Also, the last thing we had, Paula Painter gave us a report out on the special funding revenue and expense budget, so we talked a little bit about that. As CAO, I want to call you COA for some reason, but I'm not too sure, but definitely will be having our workshop tomorrow starting at 8:30. We're looking forward to that as we work through our budget and get our budget ready for the 2023-2024 year. That's all I have. I'm going to start on my left with Councilmember Michelle, please.
Thank you, Council President. I serve on the Regional Law, Safety, and Justice Committee, and we had 2 presentations at our last meeting. The first was from the Kirkland Police Chief, Chief Harris, about their gun buyback program. They had 2 events where people could come in and trade various types of guns for gift cards. And they told us what worked and all the details and what didn't work and what they would do differently. And then our second presentation was from the nonprofit Alliance for Gun Responsibility, and they spoke to some options for local leaders in gun violence prevention. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Councilmember Lummer.
Thank you. I sit on the King County Aging and Disabilities Advisory Council, and we've not met yet. We'll have that meeting later this month. But I did have a meeting of the Affordable Housing Committee, and we are still looking at our options for the affordable housing targets by jurisdiction. This was an effort that started in July. It will eventually be our recommendation to the GMPC. Back in July, 3 different options for calculating how jurisdictions will be held accountable for the different AMI levels of housing were proposed. The first option's been removed from conversation since, but options 2 and 3 are still being considered. It's very nuanced conversations as to how the calculations are happening. Several of us had questions that weren't answered to our satisfaction, so we asked for an additional month, and I plan to be meeting with planner staff to have further discussions and just like really solidify our position here in Kent. So I was thankful that we were given that additional month to keep looking at these. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Councilmember Troutner.
Thank you, Council President. I am chair of the city's Economic and Community Development Committee. We have a scheduled meeting for next Monday, October 10th. I am also vice chair of the Regional Transit Committee, along with the chair, King County Councilmember Dave Upthegrove. We had our last meeting on September 21st, where we had an update on rapid ride development. We also had a briefing on flexible mobility service and Ride Pingo to Transit. And as we came out of the pandemic here in Kent, we did see an increase in ridership. So it's no surprise that the Ride Pingo to Transit program is doing very well in Kent as well. We heavily promoted that, and I think that really helped to introduce that program to our community and has helped with that ridership. Our next meeting is next week on October 19th, and that is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Troutner. Councilmember Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. President. I serve on the Puget Sound Regional Fire Authority along with President Boyce and Councilmember Troutner. Actually, I gave my report last council meeting, and our next meeting actually is tomorrow night, 5:30, Station 78.
Thank you, sir. Last but not least, Councilmember Fincher.
Thank you, Mr. President. For our council meeting, we have the Arts Commission, which I reported on last time, so nothing this time. We have the King Conservation District, which we have not met, so no report on that. But we have Public Works, which gladly accepted some grants to get some safety improvements to our roads. So the flashing beacons, the delineators between lanes, a number of different things. And the best thing is we had 2 of those and there was no match. So it really is free money that we're getting. For the Mental Illness and Drug Dependency Advisory Council, for that one, what we did was did our regular budget stuff, but the highlight was Neighborhood House. I'd heard of Neighborhood House, but didn't know a lot about what Neighborhood House did. Well, I found out that it's 116 years old, and they do all sorts of things. They do home visits, they do case management, they make it so seniors can age in place. You know, they move in and their ability is at one level. They get older, they need some assistance. They don't have to move someplace else, so they're able to stay in one place, keep the same community that they've been built up that entire time. They have a program called Pearls, and Pearls is in existence in over 300 cities, but it's one of those programs where they've done all of the testing, and so they know that it is a tried and true gym, being a Pearl, but it really works, and it helps with depression. It helps the particularly seniors and adults with depression, working through different challenges, mental health counseling, setting realistic goals, just all sorts of things. But they do a lot of good work. So that was Pearls. And Councilmember Troutner and I also had the opportunity to go visit our courthouse. Sorry, there is something in my throat tonight. We went over and visited, our courthouse. So the Public Outreach Commission of the District and Municipal Court Judges Association had a program, and in visiting, we learned what they do, how they do it, what their needs are, and a number of things. I'd like to just thank Candace Enders, Judge Geip, and Judge Franz, especially for the work they do with the community courts and the DUI courts. They are really helping people. The idea is to make people better instead of just lock them up. So they are really helping people over there, which is helping families in the community. So I think that is it for my report.
Thank you, Councilmember Fincher. Madam Mayor, that ends our reports.
All right, thank you, Council President. We are moving on in the agenda. Item number 6 is public hearing. We have 2 public hearings this evening related to the budget. The first public hearing will be the 2023-2024 biennial budget. Staff will give a presentation, and then I'll invite the public to provide testimony, written statement, and other evidence. Public input must relate to the subject of the public hearing. Council members, please feel free to ask questions during the hearing. If you are here to testify on this matter, again, the 2023-24 biennial budget, would ask that you sign up at the front. With that, we are going to go ahead and open the public hearing. And I would like to ask Paula Painter, our finance director, to make the presentation.
Great. Thank you, and good evening, Council President Boyce, Mayor Ralph, members of City Council. Tonight, I'm here with the first public hearing on the 2023-24 biennial budget. Mayor Ralph presented her budget proposal last week on September 27th at a special council meeting, and that was now followed by a couple of workshops. So we've been able to engage with the council going through elements of this budget. In fact, one of our budget workshops did happen earlier today. The overall city budget for the 2023-24 biennial budget is nearly $850.2 million. Of that amount, $234.5 million is budgeted in the city's general fund. When putting the budget together, the following assumptions were taken into account. Salary increases, we did look at the various union contracts that are in place and put in increases for salaries based on those union contracts. In addition, we did look at our self-insured health care plan, in which there were no increases in those rates, but a 5% increase in 2024 as a placeholder or estimate for that year. The employer contributions to our retirement systems are factored in at 10.39% and 5.3% for both years. And as standard, our supplies and services were increased by 2%, with exception to any contract that may be subject to increases greater than that 2% limitation. We did have our insurance funds, workers' comp, liability, and property insurance, all that saw increases between 20 to 30% for both years, with exception to property tax, which saw a 10% increase in 2024. Overall, this budget did have a few items in here that I'd like to be able to highlight, items that supported our equity projects, including funding for our equity strategic plan, translation of vital documents, and community court. In addition, there were police enhancements that helped us to get in alignment with the new police reform that is out there, including dollars for attracting qualified and diverse candidates and equipment to ensure that we're able to do our investigations to the standards that are now currently being set. In addition, there is staffing for the permit center. This is to recognize the growing need for demand in that area and is offset by the revenues in that area. And then also Green Kent, looking at bringing on staffing to help maintain both the Mill Creek and the Van Dorn landing areas, as well as bringing back the volunteer coordinator and the Green Kent Stewards program, where we would be able to leverage $150,000 in volunteer labor work. There are some projects in here, both the Kent East Hill Operations Center and the Facilities Reinvestment Funding. There are solar panels for the senior center, and then bringing on red light cameras into 6 additional locations in which you'll see the revenues and the expenditures are represented there on this slide. If you're interested in checking out the 2023-24 proposed budget, I encourage you to visit the city's website at www.kentwa.gov, and you can check that out. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. Council, any questions for Paula? Councilmember Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Paula, would you go back? I think it's 2 slides to, yeah, right there.
Yes.
So most of the, increases in each area, a few percentage points, but when you get down to insurance, 20 and 30% seems a little high, but are we covering Florida's hurricanes or what's going on down there? I mean,
That is a great question, Councilmember Thomas. I will say that really when you start looking at our liability and property insurance funds, as well as our workers' comp fund, those are funds that have really been impacted by things that are going on within the industry as a whole. Yes, the disasters that do happen around the world, it's not directly tied to what's happening in Florida, but certainly those do have impacts on the insurance company. Also has recognizing that things are changing, and it looks too at our own experience as well. So this is an area I think most everyone is seeing substantial growth in expenditure, and we've had lots of conversations with council over the last couple of years, I want to say, since I've been back over this, and we're continuing to see those same struggles going on with this.
well, insurance companies base their premiums on risk. So I'm just curious what amount of risk is out there right now. I'm trying to figure this out. I don't have a good explanation. I know premiums have gone up for everybody and for everything. I mean, just look at Florida. We won't get hit with this until next year, because there are companies like Safeco's still around. And, fortunately, I don't think they cover way down into the south area, but others do. And it all kinds of come together. And we'll feel a little bit more next year. But I know the cost, healthcare has gone up crazy right now. So insurance, I understand it. I just don't, I'm having struggles. Of course, I have struggles yesterday when I filled my gas tank too, but all right, that's enough talking about it. But I just saw the amounts of increase there, and it caused me to question it. So I'm glad.
Well, we will make sure that you have the information that you need to help to understand that, and so we'll get something together for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Any other questions for Paula? Okay, I am not seeing any. I would like to now invite the public to provide testimony, written statements, or other evidence. We do ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes, state your name and city of residence for the record. And for the public hearing, comments are limited to the 23-24 budget. Kim, do we have any written comments to be submitted?
No.
Okay, then could you please call the speakers?
I have one person signed up to speak, Cliff Cawthon.
That's funny. Oh, there we go. Sorry. Hello, my name is Cliff Cawthon. As many of you know, I live right up the hill on East Hill here in Kent. And I actually came to speak about something else, but I wanted to speak about the budget, mainly because there are a couple of things as a resident and homeowner that I wanted to highlight. First of all, one thing that I saw that was really concerned about was that their line item for equity investments that was eliminated, and unless I'm incorrect, and political scientist, so I can be. I admit I'm wrong sometimes. But if we're talking about equity in terms of social equity and investments in marginalized groups in our city, that I would strongly ask you to reconsider, because there are a number of different groups that are doing really great work, and especially right now as we come out of at least this pandemic economy and as we're facing a recession, that they could use the city's support as well as support of different partner governments. That being said, I also just simply want to ask the city to consider increasing its capacity when it comes to permitting staff, as well as particularly looking into expenditures into higher wages for young workers. because one of the things that came up in the last couple of years was lack of staffing for the beat, for Lake Meridian Beach, for other low-wage jobs that the city offered, and a big root cause of the big labor shortage we have now is simply that jobs don't pay. Simple as that. So I would ask you to, with all of the other things considered, consider increasing some of those low-wage positions that are in the early teens and into $20 an hour jobs, because even young folks these days are often supporting their families, often dealing with skyrocketing rents. We all know what is going on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cawthon. I would like to quickly address both of those. There is a line item in the proposed budget to increase temporary staffing wages, so absolutely looking to address that for all of those reasons. And there is an additional equity investment, not an elimination of money in our equity and in our race and equity outwork. So that line item is just over $1 million in addition to the money that we're already spending. Kim, do we have any other speakers?
We do not.
All right. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So move.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. The public hearing is now closed. All right. The next public hearing we have this evening is the 2023 through 2028 Capital Improvement Plan. Same rules apply. Paula will give a presentation, and then I will invite the public to provide comment either via written statements or public comment, and it needs to apply specifically to the 2023-2028 Capital Improvement Plan. With that, we will go ahead and open the public hearing. And I'll turn it over to Paula.
Great, thank you again. This is, as the mayor mentioned, the first public hearing on the 6-year capital improvement plan for 2023 through 2028. This plan is a required component of the Growth Management Act that was passed by the state legislature back in 1990. To meet this, the city does create a 6-year plan. The plan provides some recommended financing methods along with some projects to be able to meet the public facility needs that are required to maintain levels of service. The CIP is adopted by ordinance and it updates the city's comprehensive plan. The first 2 years of the plan are included in the 2023-24 budget. Overall, this 6-year plan totals $243 million, and $109 million is included in the 2023-24 budget. There are various projects from general government projects to parks, rec, and community services, transportation projects, and utility projects. If you'd like to see a copy of the capital improvement plan, you can check it out in the mayor's proposed budget for 2023-24, and that can be found at www.kentwa.gov. Thank you.
All right. Sorry about that. Council, any questions for Paula? Okay. Kim, do we have any public, any comments, written comments submitted?
No.
Do we have anyone signed up to testify on this public hearing?
We do not.
All right, then with that, a motion would be in order to close the public hearing.
So move.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Public hearing is now closed. All right, we will move on to item number 7, public comment. The public comment period is the opportunity to speak to the council or the mayor on issues that relate to business of the city on this agenda or other items you would like council to consider in the future. Comments that do not relate to the business of the city are not permitted, and I do want to remind everyone that state law prohibits anyone from speaking for or against a ballot measure or a candidate running for office. We do have a 3-minute timer, and that will go up on the screen. Once Kim calls your name, if you could step up to the podium, state your name and city of residence for the record, and then you can begin your public comments. Kim, will you please call our first speaker?
you, Madam Mayor. We have 6 people signed up to speak. The first speaker is T.J. Peterson, followed by Beth Williams, followed by Van Hurst.
Hello, Mayor, Council President,
Evening.
councilors. Awesome. Homelessness. Y'all brought it up since you brought it up. The camping ordinance, definitely needed. I get it. How did we get here? 20 years ago, there's a bunch of people that says, oh, we can't build any more apartments. Industrial area, oh, can't have housing in industrial area. That was just brought up by Mr. Ellis. Big push on that. People have been coming to Kent. Tenant protections. We probably have the least amount of tenant protections in the county or the state, if anybody. We create more homeless people. Our evictions are through the roof. Rents are up. Landlords, rent seekers, they're kind of like ticket scalpers, and they don't really produce anything. They just kind of park themselves, and Adam Smith says, oh, a lot of people like to reap where they never sowed. You know, how do we get here? Okay, how can we get through this? We have Naden property, 7 acres. I would love to see maybe a little land trust, couple of acres of that going to community roots. Have people downtown. We don't need more industrial area in a residential area downtown. Inclusive zoning. I've had a lot of councilors talk about inclusive zoning. We have market rate. Some market rate places have the tax breaks. Granted, you know, it's a business thing. Seems to me that, you know, there's a push for $1 million homes, $1 million parks, and $1 million home neighborhoods. I believe there's $700,000 of ARPA money going to the golf course. Man, it sure would be nice if the golf course could support itself, but those are some wealthy people over there. We got to worry about them wealthy people. They embody a certain kind of neo-Calvinism. You know, it's like, if you're wealthy, you're in a state of grace by God. I mean, it's like his name is Mammon, but to interfere, I get it. It would be almost sinful to interfere with the business end of it. On the backside of this camping ordinance, we need more treatment. We need reasonable shelter spaces. Police, drug court, oh my God, that would be huge, get people off of that. Most of the people that are out there, you don't see them. When you see them, it's already long gone. You got mental health issues, you got crime issues. Les asked me a question, how many of my friends, let me just drop SpongeBob, we'll talk about SpongeBob, we'll talk about Louisa, a couple of other friends, Vince, his dad Mike, he got killed down there in the Auburn Game Farm. We're in this position because some people want things to be this way. It's almost a sign that the city's been gentrifying. Every one of these issues is a failure of our city government, our county government, our state government. When the county comes in here, you need to work together. You need to stop litigating. You need to stop fighting with the state. You need to stop fighting with the county. We need to do something about this issue. This is people. These are lives. Little analogy I like is,
I need you to wrap up.
We got babies being thrown in the river. Hey, everybody get down there and help these babies out of the river. Nobody wants to talk about who's throwing these babies in the river. It's all about the business and the money. I know we can get through this.
I need you to wrap up. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Bev Williams, followed by Van Hurst.
My name is Bev Williams. I live in Kent, and Madam Mayor, City Council members, I wrote this morning before you did the vote already on the ordinance about the ban on public camping, but I'm going to read it anyway because I might not have enough courage to get up here again. So I say all of this with great respect for everyone here. Yesterday I was talking with someone, and we were talking about the homeless situation, and that I was going to be coming here tonight, and I said I was tired of seeing all the trash, and she said, out of sight, out of mind, right? And the implication was that I didn't care, that if we take the homeless and put them somewhere we can't see, we're callous. And I want to say that's not true of me, that's not true of people that I know. We're not callous. We want a solution. I want to say thank you for taking a big step today You guys are you're in a tough spot. No matter what you do, you're going to get a lot of grief for it. So thank you. I have a brother who's homeless. I love my brother beyond measure. It's not that I don't care. It's just that I want safe spaces for our kids to play. When I go to Fred Meyer, I see open-air drug deals. I see people passed out. None of this is new. You already all know this. So I guess what I want to say is thank you. You are courageous, and thank you, each and every single one of you.
Next speaker is Van Hurst, followed by Cliff Cawthon, followed by A.J. Williams.
My name is Van Hurst. I live here in the city of Kent. Today is October 4th. It has a meaning in the 10 codes that people use on radios. It's 10-4. That's an acknowledgement of you understand and you're going to do something. I have asked the mayor repeatedly, the council, Public Works, and the police department to look at the 80th Place South corridor between 80th Avenue South and 84th Avenue South. The mayor, the CAO, and the department heads have made a concerted effort in the last month and completely reversed the direction of that business neighborhood. There was approximately 50 semi-trailers parked along the road, 35 semi-tractors, and multiple other vehicles basically abandoned or long-term parked there. Oh, wow. Through the efforts, and I got this information from the chief, Traffic Officer Ken Clay was primarily assisted by Traffic Officers Randy Brennan, Trent Piercy, and Parking Enforcement Officer Brian Ward, who's new to the city staff. The people that work in that corridor and drive that corridor, it is a major corridor for truck traffic. We greatly appreciate where it's at today, and we look forward to the cleanup again as resources become available, can get the bushes cleaned up, get all that trash out of there, get everything happen. It's a major accomplishment, and I greatly appreciate all of you getting the resources there. Second thing I'd like to talk about today is I have made it a campaign to talk about the rebranding of the Thunderbirds. I was traveling out of state last week, and I saw a post from the mayor's office about a flag raising. She celebrated the Thunderbirds, the athletes, but did not celebrate the improper branding of the team, and I greatly appreciate that. All the photos were strategically had Kent in them and had no other city's name in it. This just a few minutes ago, Councilmember Boyce read about upcoming events. He referred to events at Showware Center. Again, he understands the rebranding that the citizens of the city of Kent wants and talked about just the Thunderbirds. I greatly appreciate it, and thank you.
Our next speaker is Cliff Cawthon, followed by A.J. Williams, followed by Ty Whitfield.
So I spoke recently, and I told you I'm a resident and homeowner, or I mentioned I live here in Kent, and I'm just speaking as a resident tonight. I'm here because the City Council should firmly reject a homeless camping ban. It's not compassionate, productive, and this is just about fear. Putting what we don't like out of sight and out of mind. Do you want to live outside? Do you want to be forced to sleep in a room where you don't feel safe? Do you want to be forced to live in a certain way just because you're poor? No. Great, we've firmly established this, right? This is a reality. No one wants to live outside. According to studies done by homeless advocates and per the one-night counts data year after year, the leading cause of homelessness is the loss of income. A significant amount of the homeless in King County have faced domestic violence as a cause of their homelessness. And a number of homeless people are youth, and a disproportionate amount of people in our streets right now are BIPOC folks. I say all that because I want to just share some of that data when we talk about the homeless and recharacterize the homeless, not as vermin, not as some kind of pestilence, but as human beings and neighbors that have been failed by a housing crisis and by a system that was not set up to serve them in the first place, and by a social safety net that is increasingly crumbling beneath us. There are too few beds available night after night in King County in homeless shelters. There are no places to go. And then charging homeless people with a misdemeanor will only further erect barriers to housing and it will keep them outside, and also less likely to be able to obtain employment in the future. So, if you want crime, that is how you create crime. So let's be clear. You cannot reject accessible homeless shelters, tiny villages, and ban affordable housing from being made in many parts of our city, and then ban homeless camping and ban people from public spaces. You cannot have it both ways. If we want a solution to the homelessness in Kent, then allow a 24-hour shelter to exist in Kent. And then in the long term, pursue policies that allow for more affordable housing opportunities to be able to manifest here in Kent. Because shelter and housing is compassionate, necessary, and that's the solution to homelessness. Not some kind of cruel, small-minded camping ban to make only, a few, quite frankly, and make some people feel better while hurting others. Thank you.
Can you please call our next speaker? And if
The next speaker is A.J. Williams, followed by Ty Whitfield. If A.J. Williams isn't here, Ty, you're up.
Good evening, City Council, Mayor. Haven't seen you guys in a while. Ty Whitfield, live in Kent, Washington, East Hill. I am going to be wearing two hats tonight. First hat I am wearing for the homeless. I have communicated with almost 100 homeless, so this is them talking right now. The first thing they asked me to say is to let you guys know Martin versus Boyce ruling. They said they have experienced this. This ruling held that cities cannot enforce anti-camping ordinance if they do not have enough homeless shelters beds available for their homeless population. Our city council is expected to ban this rule and be able to tell the homeless that they cannot be sleeping outside, on streets, in front of buildings. But with this particular ruling, there has been, as you guys know, homeless that have sued and went to Supreme Court and won. And they're in the process of coming together to try to, to fight this banning. So that's for them, to let you guys know that it's not that they want to be out on the streets. We just don't have nowhere for them to go. Now I'm talking on the community advocate head. As you guys know, I've been fighting along with residents, along with faith-based organizations, along with nonprofits for the last few years. Everyone has been fighting and saying the same voice, the same thing. We need shelter. We need shelter. Now, before the pandemic, I get it. Catholic Community Center was allowing the churches to be able to have these emergency shelters. And that's why we didn't have as bad of a homeless problem, because we had churches that was wearing the hat. Well, during the pandemic, as you guys all know, Catholic Community Center have stopped all the contracts with the churches, which really, really hurt City of Kent, because now we went from over 10 to 15 churches that was implementing shelters to now we only have 3 shelters. One shelter for domestic violence, you have to deal with the circumstance with that. One shelter that deals with children and women, and another shelter for single women. Right now, I call them daily, there's no beds. So what we're dealing with is that we keep saying that we are tired of saying that. And from King County giving $1.5 million, I tried to do something by having a tiny house village. You guys said you're not ready for that. I get it. But on one end, just like Cliff said, is we can't say we don't want to see it. We don't want to see this. And then on the other end, we don't do anything to support something for our homeless population. Kent, We have to do better. We cannot continue to say, we don't want this to see this, but we don't come together. And as far as with our residents and our faith-based and our nonprofits, we can't do anything if you guys are not helping us. Every time we try to do something, we're getting fault. So now everybody's restless and they're tired. I'm just asking, this is all I'm asking, for one area of banding, please help us on the other area. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, there's no applause in the council chambers. We need to keep the comment moving. Thank you.
Mayor, I have no additional people signed up to speak.
All right. Thank you. With that, we will end public comment. Next item on the agenda is the consent calendar. It's a compilation of items that the council has worked on at committee over the last several weeks and have passed them out of those committees without controversy. We have items A through J. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I make a motion to approve item A through J.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consent calendar passes. Item number 10 is bids. We do not have any this evening, nor do we have an executive session. So that brings us to the end of our meeting. And with that, we are adjourned.